Audrey Ferris burst onto the scene at the end of the silent era and quickly became a star. She seemed to effortlessly transition to starring in the early talkies, but after a few years, she slipped into B-movie comedy shorts and then seemed to vanish. Why? Join me as I investigate. Audrey Ferris was born as Audrey Keller in Detroit in 1909 to Frank and Florence Keller. Frank was a railroad clerk, and in 1911 the family moved to Los Angeles. Frank and Florence soon divorced, and in 1917, Florence remarried David Ferris, who legally adopted Audrey. We know that Audrey sang and danced from a young age, and in high school she was in her school's orchestra. Also, while she was still in high school, she began singing and dancing in movie prologue shows at Grauman's Theater in Hollywood. It's no surprise that not soon after, Audrey found her way into the movies. In 1927, she starred as the leading lady in a few of Jack White's collegiate comedy shorts. That same year, she appeared as a chorus girl in The Jazz Singer, and also had a major supporting role opposite Mae McAvoy and Conrad Nagel in Slightly Used at Warner Brothers. She also starred with George Jessel in Sailor Izzy Murphy, Irene Rich in The Silver Slave, and with Jessel again in Ginsberg the Great, all of which were at Warner Brothers and had synchronized sound and music from Vitaphone. She then starred with Irene Rich again in Beware of Married Men, a hit comedy that also starred Myrna Loy. What a successful first year in Hollywood for Audrey. Motion Picture News even published an article about her discussing how Warner Brothers had elevated her to stardom. She was also designated as one of Warner Brothers' earliest Vitaphone stars in anticipation of more talkies yet to come. Audrey entered 1928 a big rising star, and on the strength of her successes, she was named a Wampus Baby Star. She began that year starring with Irene Rich again in another hit comedy, Powder My Back. She then starred with Rin Tin Tin in Renty of the Desert, which appears to have been a big hit. Next, she starred with Irene Rich yet again, this time adding William Collier Jr. in Women They Talk About, a partial talkie, although we know that Audrey and Collier were not heard speaking in this picture. This film was also a big hit. Audrey then was teamed with Collier again. This time, she was top billed in Beware of Bachelors, another successful partial talkie. Variety praised Audrey's work in this film, stating, "Audrey Ferris serves as a highly accomplished and interesting feminine lead, photographing very attractively in face and person." Audrey finished out 1928 by starring with James Murray and Hallam Cooley in another partial talkie, The Little Wildcat, which also appears to have been a hit. After another successful year as one of Warner's top early talkie stars, Audrey entered 1929 still successful and strongly starred with Myrna Loy in Fancy Baggage, another partial talkie that appears to have done well. With its release, Audrey appeared to still be one of Warner's top new talkie stars, with a piece in Motion Picture News even stating that she kept growing in popularity with each release. But her next film, her first full-length talkie, Glad Ragdoll, saw her demoted back to the second female lead. Although she was one of the stars of the picture, it was really a vehicle for Dolores Costello. Audrey then had an even smaller role supporting Sophie Tucker in her screen debut in Honky Tonk, which apparently was a commercial flop. Warner Brothers then appears to have dropped Audrey, and she made no more films in 1929. Audrey didn't appear in another movie until March of 1930 and played another supporting role in Universal's Undertow, which starred Mary Nolan and Johnny Mac Brown. While her role wasn't the biggest, Audrey was memorable, and thankfully this film survives. In this scene, you can see Audrey all but stealing the scene from Nolan and Brown as she spies on them dancing with a jealous Robert Ellis. Undertow proved to be Audrey's only 1930 release. In 1931, she moved to Educational Pictures to work with Al Christie in a series of his comedy shorts. She first supported Glenn Tryon and Helen Mann in For the Love of Fanny, playing a snooty girl that has snagged a fraternity pin from her boyfriend. She then starred as the leading lady in two 1932 comedy shorts. First, with Harry Barris in That Rascal as a young woman dating a crooner who discovers that her father does not approve of him. Next, she starred with Glenn Tryon again in Honeymoon Beach. Here she played Connie Watts, a young woman courted by Billy Bevan who unsuccessfully tries to use the old Cyrano approach to wooing her with hilarious results in a rowboat. What I like most about watching Audrey in these comedy shorts is that she shows so much promise as a physical comedienne, especially in Honeymoon Beach, where she is not afraid to take a plunge when the comedy calls for it. Audrey would go on to appear in just 2 more movies after her Christie comedies, both of which were B-movies at Poverty Row Studios. In 1933, she appeared in Justice Takes a Holiday with H.B. Warner, and in 1935, she supported Lila Lee and Lon Chaney Jr. in The Marriage Bargain. Following that picture's release, she retired for good. In May of 1935, Audrey had one last burst of publicity when her mother took her father to court to demand payment of back alimony dating back to the 19-teens. Following this trial, Audrey vanished completely from the public eye. We know that she married Archer Huntington, who was no relation, as I can tell, to the famous architect, around 1930. This Archer Huntington's real name was actually Archer H. Saki. Aside from that, I couldn't find any other information about Audrey, making her another one of the most mysterious stars that I've ever covered. We do know that she passed away in 1990 at the age of 80, but rumor has it that her death wasn't even reported in the news until 1998, although I still couldn't find any obituary or burial information anywhere. So we are left with the question, why did Audrey Ferris's talkie career lose momentum after such an encouraging start? I honestly am not sure if I can really answer this question, as there seems to be little to no information about Audrey out there. We do know that she got some bad press in 1930 when her husband threw a gin bottle at another man following a public quarrel with Audrey. All I can think of is that perhaps her career was tarnished by scandal sheets, although if that happened in 1930, it would not explain why Warner's dropped her in 1929 after promoting her as one of its top talkie stars in the earliest 2 years of talkie motion pictures. The only possible explanation I can deduce for the studio dropping her is perhaps her major starring vehicles didn't make money, as much money as they had hoped, and then they demoted her before dropping her altogether. With few options, she drifted into B-comedy shorts and other B-movies before throwing in the towel. It's a real shame, as she had a true talent for comedy, and I wish she had had more of a chance to star in early 1930s comedies. I feel certain that she could have gone on to have a career similar to Carole Lombard or Jean Arthur's. While almost all of Audrey's silence and partial talkies are lost, save a few preserved in film archives, we at least have Undertow and her 3 Christie comedy shorts, For the Love of Fanny, That Rascal, and Honeymoon Beach, all available to enjoy on YouTube. Please check them out today. Also, if you have any further information about Audrey Ferris, especially about her life following her retirement, please let me know. I'd love to do a follow-up episode to shed some light on her mysterious exit from Hollywood. Despite this mysterious exit, Audrey still has a deserved legacy as one of the earliest talkie stars in film history. What a talent, what a legend. I must thank my sources for this episode: Roy Liebman's book, Vitaphone Films, the Los Angeles Times, the Dothan Eagle, the Knoxville News Sentinel, and archive.org for their digitization of motion picture news and variety. Please like and subscribe or follow this account if you want to learn more about the history of silent film stars whose stardom lasted only briefly in the talkies. Up next, join me as I investigate the silent talkie career of Harrison Ford. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.